Hello and welcome to the Essentials of Living Aboard a Boat podcast. This is Mark Nicholas, the author of The Essentials of Living Aboard a Boat. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the cost of boating. When I go to conferences and I speak, and when I meet young boaters, aspiring boaters, one of the things that I'm immediately struck with is how large the disconnect is between the idea of what boating costs and the reality of what boating costs. Most people assume that the cost of boating involves a down payment, a monthly payment of principal and interest, insurance, and berthing costs, berthing charges. You know, the cost of keeping your boat at a particular marina. I put a spreadsheet together to try to illustrate what I think the costs are that everybody needs to consider. While it's geared to the live aboard, you'll notice that most of these expenses apply regardless of live aboard or non-live aboard. The spreadsheet is broken into a few different subheadings. In particular, it's broken into initial cost, monthly cost, and if we were to scroll down, you would see operating, seasonal, and special assessments. The columns across on the left side is your boat. This spreadsheet is free of charge. You can download it off of livingaboard.net. Also, there are 5 other categories. Old Woody is a $10,000 boat that you buy for cash. It has no engine. It is not designed to be operated. It's just a cheap 40-foot boat. Raft House 40 is a 40-foot boat, 40-foot raft with a fully functional house that floats upon it. I'm selling that for $15,000 in cash. And then there are 3 kinds of boats that are financed. A mini sailboat, a 30-footer. Speedy is a powerboat 40. And Big Sail is a 45-foot sailboat. Mini Sail is going for, and these are just names I've made up, going for $35,000. Speedy and Big Sail are $150,000 boats. The initial cost, as you can see, there's a down payment. There are taxes. Don't forget the taxes. The survey. I've charged $30 per foot. Now, while we have not decided to survey either Old Woody or Raft House because they were so cheap, that may be required if you get in the boat insured, and it may be required by your marina. But the remainder, Mini Sail, Speedy, and Big Sail, I've assumed approximately $30 to $33 per foot for the survey charge. And that includes, obviously, maybe $17 a foot for purposes of the survey itself, but there's a haul, there's a launch, there are different expenses built in, and so I've roughly assumed $30 a foot. Then you can see a registration charge. I've assumed that the 2 smaller real boats are going to cost $45. That's going to be an initial plus an annual, and that's just assuming a state that charges $45 initially. Then I've assumed Coast Guard registration for the 2 larger vessels. Raft houses are not boats. They're not typically considered boats, and therefore there's no charge for that. Delivery can range, can cost $0, can cost $25,000. I've just put $400 in because this is really a made-up exercise. And initial repairs and upgrades. Bottom line, as you can see, I have assumed $11,000 all in for Old Woody, $16,000, the difference being really the cost of the boat. And then you can see between $11,000 and then it jumps up to $42,000. And that really is due to the down payment. That's the difference between buying a $35,000 boat and buying a $150,000 boat. As we continue the exercise, there's a monthly cost. Now, monthly cost really breaks down to boat principal plus interest payment, plus insurance, plus slip fees. I've assumed that Old Woody and Raft House are going to be at cheaper marinas, and that the 3 usable boats are going to be at a nicer marina, and I just came up with some rough numbers of what that might cost. Otherwise, the boats are financed over 20 years, and insurance was a rough quote that I received from USAA, which is my insurance company. There are going to be utilities. There are going to be water charges in some marinas. You may have a cell phone or an internet connection, cable TV. Many marinas charge for parking, so if you keep a car, there may be a charge. I've just roughly assumed $60 a month. Bottom line, like all bottom lines, if you were to take those numbers, you would see a monthly charge and an annual charge thusly. And so you'd see an annual charge of about $6,700 for Old Woody, $12,900 for mini sail, and then the larger boats are $27,000. The big difference here is value plus length. Longer the boat, the more expensive the undertaking. Okay? Seasonal costs. Many of these costs apply whether or not you use the boat. For instance, routine maintenance. I've assumed $2,000 and $5,000 for the two larger boats, $2,000 for mini sail, and $500 for the smaller. There's going to be an annual registration fee. You see it's $0 for the bigs. It's because of the Coast Guard registration. There may be licensing charges in certain states, excise taxes, which may be tied to value. All normal stuff and things you should consider. If you have an engine, particularly in cold weather, you may be commissioning and decommissioning, so there are expenses there. You're going to probably want to haul and launch once a year. Some people do it every 2 years. Some people do it 2 times a year. Certainly if there's damage, you're going to be hauling and launching there. But for a bottom wash, maybe a bottom paint, you can see the numbers. In winter conditions, particularly brutal winter conditions, you're going to see shrink wrapping charges, which are paid by the foot. And then many marinas now are charging live-aboard fees. Emergency service fee, there's $75 charge for annual registration with something like a sea tow. If you're going to use the boat, I think that's money very well spent, since a tow-in could cost thousands of dollars if you otherwise don't expect it. Okay? As a result, you can see the bottom line here for seasonal is still $1,800 for a boat you don't use, $1,000 for the raft, far less than a house would cost, but it's $1,000 that needs to be considered. It's a lot of money. And then you can see $5,000 for the small sailboat, $10,000 and $9,000. Okay. Moving on, operating costs. Here you have $0 operating costs for Old Woody or the raft house. They don't operate, but otherwise we're talking about fuel, transient fees if you go to other marinas, water taxi fees if you moor, ice, particularly if you don't have a fridge, and so I assume that the 2 sailboats do not have full-time operating fridges, but Speedy does. You can see then that there's a bottom line of zeros for the boats that don't operate, $650, $2,400 here, and then the big number of $9,700. This is attributable here to fuel usage. Okay, so special assessments, repairs and damage, new equipment, things that just boaters experience. Most experienced boaters say that you should expect a routine maintenance charge for approximately 10% of the value of the boat. Now, that may include years of very little, but it may also include years of a great deal when you have some sort of a major structural issue to correct. The numbers I have used are way lower than that. As you can see, these $150,000 boats, I'm assuming only a $5,000 charge. That's really nominal compared to what you might otherwise expect. Okay, the bottom line, if we were to take a look at what this means, it means that initial costs are laid out, and then I've taken annual costs and I've divided it by 12 for your monthly cost. This monthly cost will be incurred more heavily in some months than in others. But the bottom line, powerboat's more money than the sailboat. The difference really sits in fuel, even though the sailboat here, for purposes of our example, is 5 feet longer. You still have a $20,000 charge, total charge for the mini sailboat, and then quite a bit lower here for the other 2 vessels. Okay? Now, what does this tell you? It tells you, number 1, all numbers are made up. Number 2, the longer the boat, the more money you pay. Number 3, you use fuel, the more money you pay. Bottom line here is that circumstances vary, whether you choose to get an external storage facility, whether you don't, whether you decide that you want to use your cell phone also as a modem for accessing the internet. Maybe you're going to run 2 cell phones, or many people have a cell phone plus a computer card for accessing. my purpose, my goal, is to lay out in as clear a fashion as possible what all of these expenses may be, initial, monthly, seasonal, and operating. Okay? I hope that helps. I hope you are a more knowledgeable boater, and I hope you feel free to contact me. I'm at livingaboard.net. Anytime you've got a question that you would like to talk through. In the meantime, this is Mark Nicholas, Essentials of Living Aboard a Boat podcast, and we're signing off. Fair winds.